been over a year since I uploaded one of my last videos to YouTube, which is a video of me building a small budget gaming PC that I could put in my game room that would fit in with my consoles. So it seemed only fitting that my first video back would be kind of an update to that one. And as you can tell by the parts on the table in front of you, I've taken what was the very simple task of swapping parts from one case to another and turned it into building an entirely new PC. Starting off with the case, I went with the Loque Ghost S1 Mark II. And this thing is actually what's pretty much responsible for all of this, because I had originally used the Fractal Node 202, but quickly realized that it had a fatal flaw. And that is that, at least horizontally, it is an airflow nightmare. To resolve this, I ended up moving it out and putting it vertically on top next to the TV, which honestly wasn't very aesthetically pleasing, and that kind of defeated the purpose of me getting the Node 202 in the first place, of fitting in my entertainment center and kind of looking like a console. It was shortly after I had done that I saw a video that Jay's 2 Cents posted about the Loque Ghost S1. Immediately fell in love with it, figured it would fix all of my airflow issues, and backed it right away. And come the end of November last year, it finally showed up and it was well worth the wait. And while it doesn't really fit that form factor that the Node 202 did, it's not tall enough that it can sit next to the TV and still look aesthetically pleasing, and it's a worthy compromise for me. Now, since the primary focus of this PC is to play video games, I decided to go with Intel and get the i5 8600K. To cool the 8600K, I decided to go with the CryoRig C7 CU, which is essentially the copper version of the C7. And I decided to remove the factory fan and replace it with a Corsair ML120 Pro. And I did this with a 3D printed bracket. Now, I didn't replace the fan to try to get better cooling because it's not going to have any effect in that way. However, it's going to be quieter. And not only that, it's going to look a lot better too. And since I decided to upgrade the CPU to an 8th Gen i5, it only makes sense that I have to upgrade the motherboard, since the 8600K won't work in the Gigabyte H110 that I had originally used. For that, I decided to go with the MSI Z370i Gaming Pro Carbon AC. It's like the mouthful, but it just didn't make sense to spend the extra money on the Z390 for me, and this board had the features that I wanted. For the memory, I had originally gone with 8 gigabytes of some run-of-the-mill Kingston HyperX Fury, clocked at 2400 megahertz. And honestly, in 2019, 8 gigs is the least you should be trying to put in a gaming PC. So I decided to upgrade to some G-Skills Trident Z RGB, 16 gigabytes clocked at 3000 megahertz. And I had not intended to go with RGB originally, but it was Black Friday and I was able to get RGB for pretty much the same price as non-RGB, and Trident Z is awesome memory. Now let's talk about the graphics card. And originally I'd gone with the 1060 SC from EVGA, you know, one of those shorties with a single fan. After I had decided on a graphics card to put in my main rig, I took the RX 480 that I had sitting there as kind of a placeholder and put it in this machine. Now shortly after I'd done that, mining was huge and the RX 480 was selling for quite a bit on eBay. I ended up selling that card for just a little bit less than it cost me to get this 1070 SC from EVGA. So all of this put together is the reason for the upgrade to the power supply. And originally I had used the SF450, and for that hardware it was more than enough. However, it wouldn't leave me enough of a buffer zone for me to be comfortable, so I went with the SF600 because honestly, your power supply is the last place that you want to cut corners or try to save money. Power supplies, generally, if you get good ones, last a long time. For the main drive, I went with a Samsung PM961, which is an M.2 drive. It's an NVMe, so it's really fast. For game storage, I decided to go with a Seagate, just a standard 1 terabyte, 2.5 inch hard drive. Something that I definitely want to upgrade to, say, like a 2 terabyte SATA-based SSD in the future. The last piece to talk about are the power supply cables. After getting all of these parts in the case and seeing it assembled, I felt like it would really let down the aesthetics, even though you can't really see them with all the panels on. So I felt like it really needed sleeved cables, and as you saw from the last video, I generally do that myself, but there was just a lot of crap going on and I didn't have time. So I ended up going to the only person that I trust besides myself, which would be Michael over at Mod1. Anyhow, enough rambling, on with the build montage. Now, I know what you're thinking. I clearly didn't use enough thermal paste, but I did make sure to use my Swiss Army knife and my tweezers, not to mention my wireless ESD bracelet. Granted, I know, it's not a Livestrong, but it gets the job done. All joking aside, I'm filming this a considerable amount of time after having built the system because I really wanted to run it through its paces before I came to any sort of conclusion. And really, this all started out to resolve an issue. And so you may be wondering, did this actually fix the airflow problems that I was having with the Node 202? And the answer is, yes, absolutely. Ish. And I only say that because had I not been a knob and just transferred the parts from the Node 202 into the Ghost, that it would perform just as well, if not better. But no, I had to knowingly go ahead and put an 8600K underneath a cooler that was honestly adequate at best. And since I'm a perfectionist, obviously adequate just wasn't good enough. So I went ahead and delidded the 8600K and replaced the garbage thermal paste that Intel's been using on 8th gen processors with some liquid metal. And the temperature decrease wasn't as big as I was expecting. And honestly, that really highlights the inherent design flaw of the C7. And it's really not a fault of the Ghost. It has really nothing to do with its airflow. The airflow is fine, but it's just the cooler. And if you're thinking of buying a Ghost, and that's a concern for you, you could always get a better cooler such as the Noctua L12. But in one of these rare instances, I actually chose, form over function, and that's the price you pay sometimes. So, since building the system, delidding the CPU isn't the only change that I've made. I also ran across a 1080 Ti at a price that I just couldn't pass up, so I ditched the 1070. And then I installed an SSD for higher priority games on my main system, and it really kind of ruined me for load times. So I replaced the hard drive with a Samsung 1TB 860 QVO. Lastly, Michael over at Mod1 took the time to make me a new 24-pin ATX cable that's a custom length for the Ghost, so it's shorter, kind of accounts for the bend, and thus looks a lot cleaner than the original. So, do I have any more changes planned for this system in the near future? Honestly, no. So now it's time for me to come to some sort of conclusion here. And just like the last system, I built this one to go in my game room to play games like racing games, fighting games, or platformers that are more conducive to sitting on a couch using a controller than sitting at a desk playing with a keyboard and mouse. Now, I still use that system to play first-person shooters or strategy games, and while I joke that this system is kind of ridiculous, it is kind of a joke because there are newer games like Forza Horizon 4 that the last system, there's no way on earth it would ever be able to play those at 1080p at, 120 frames per second, whereas this does it no problem. And thinking about it, I couldn't tell you how many computers I've built. I've lost count. But this one has probably been my favorite one. My favorite build that I've ever done because I just love how much power is packed into such a tiny package. The form factor, the fact that it's just so clean. I just really love this computer. It's been a lot of fun building in this case. Now, I realize there are some of you that would have expected me to throw up some benchmark figures by now, some temperature, power consumption, things like that, and I'm sorry, I just didn't feel like there was enough time in this video for that, but I have included a link down in the description to the Builds GG page for this system, and there's a buttload of pictures, detailed descriptions of all the parts, as well as benchmark figures, temperatures, noise, and power consumption. So go ahead and check that out if you want. There's also a link for my main system that I do all my editing on if you're interested. Anyways, I don't think there's much more to say besides if you like this video, you know what to do. If you didn't, you still know what to do. But if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. And as with any of my videos, any tools or products used in this video will be down in the description as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you with the next video.